5 years into my marriage with Sebastian Sterling, both I and his mistress, Hailey Miller, got pregnant at the same time. A psychic hired by his family predicted that whoever gave birth to a son first would inherit the entire Sterling Empire's trust. But on the day I went into labor, the chauffeur drove me to the hospital entrance, only to lock the doors. He refused to let me out. "I'm sorry, Chloe. Hailey's water just broke too," the driver said, refusing to look me in the eye. "Mr. Sterling said Hailey must deliver her baby first before I can let you into the hospital." They confiscated my phone. They left me screaming in agony inside the locked car for an entire night until I blacked out. By dawn, Hailey had safely delivered a healthy baby boy. Only then did Sebastian order the guards to wheel me into the operating room. But my baby had suffocated. He died in my womb because of the delay. The severe infection forced the doctors to perform an emergency hysterectomy. I could never have children again. Seeing my lifeless eyes, Sebastian actually tried to comfort me in his rare gentle voice. "I can't marry Hailey. My mother hates her. If anything happens to me, she and the baby will have nothing. I had to secure the inheritance for her as a safety net. You're already Mrs. Sterling. You can raise her boy as your own. You don't need another kid to stress you out anyway." I screamed inwardly at the sheer absurdity. He wasn't worried about my stress. He was paving the way for Hailey. That night, I dragged my weak body and knocked on the door of Sebastian's mother, Victoria. "You promised me once. If I help Sebastian secure the CEO position, you'd grant me one wish. I want a divorce." Before Sebastian even showed up, his other mistresses arrived in a group to mock me. They smirked, looking down at me on the hospital bed. So what if she's the legal wife? She thought she could control Mr. Sterling just because she was pregnant. Look at her now. She lost the baby and her dignity. Now that her uterus is gone, Mr. Sterling will probably dump her in a few days. Hailey is the lucky one. Just a lounge singer, but now she's the mother of the heir. Sebastian had kept the events of last night tightly under wraps. But everyone in our circle knew he had abandoned a multi-million-dollar deal just to be by Hailey's side during labor, leaving me completely alone. Who mattered more to him was obvious. So these women took out their frustrations of being neglected on me. The wife who existed only in name. I let out a bitter laugh. Ever since I got pregnant, Sebastian had stopped seeing these women. He came home every day to accompany me. But nobody knew he had secretly moved Hailey into our estate to care for her. He hadn't stepped foot in my bedroom for months. He wanted to be close to his true love, while shielding her from the jealousy of his other mistresses. There was no better shield than me, his legal wife. As I was lost in my thoughts, a familiar, cold voice rang out from the doorway. "She just escaped death. Who authorized you to disturb her? Get out, all of you." The women scattered in panic. Sebastian walked over to my bedside. Seeing how pale I was, he sighed. "Chloe, don't take it to heart. Some things are just destined. The baby just wasn't meant to be yours. Hailey was worried about you. Even though she just gave birth, she insisted on coming to check on you. What a beautiful excuse, destined." As if my agony last night had absolutely nothing to do with him. I looked up, my voice dead and flat. "It wasn't destiny. His father killed him. You locked him inside me until he suffocated." Before he could snap back, Hailey burst into tears right behind him. "Chloe, please don't blame Sebastian. It's all because of my poor background. I can't marry him, so he wanted me to have the heir, so we would have something to rely on. If you're still angry, I can give my life for your baby. It's just, my poor son would lose his mother right after birth." Sebastian quickly wiped her tears, his eyes filled with tenderness. "Don't talk nonsense. We promised to watch our boy grow up and start his own family together." When he turned back to me, his face was masked in cold irritation. "Chloe Vance, your own baby was just too weak. He couldn't even survive a few extra hours in the womb. How can you blame anyone else? I've let you keep the title of Mrs. Sterling. Even though you can't conceive anymore, I have no plans to divorce you. I even plan to let Hailey's son call you his godmother to make up for your loss. Instead of appreciating my kindness, you're being bitter and sarcastic. Is this how a supportive wife behaves? Reflect on your attitude. Always demanding my understanding. The first time I caught him in bed with another woman, he claimed he was drugged and it wasn't his fault. He said keeping her as a mistress was just taking responsibility, and asked for my understanding. Then came the second time, the third time. Eventually, he paraded Hailey around at high society galas and hotels. Paparazzi camped outside our family mansion every day. His family blamed me for being incompetent. But Sebastian would nuzzle my neck, begging softly, "Don't you think Hailey looks a bit like you when we were younger? It's been so long since I felt that spark. Please, honey, just help me deal with the reporters and my mother." Sebastian scooped Hailey up in a bridal carry, as if terrified she might tire herself out, and walked away. Hailey glanced back at me, playing the shy victim. "Sebastian, there are reporters outside. This will embarrass Chloe. Put me down." Sebastian paused, letting out a mocking chuckle. "Let them take photos. I'm treating the woman I love right. Why should I care about anyone else's feelings? Faced with this deliberate humiliation, I didn't cry. I walked right past the flashing cameras and went back to the Sterling mansion. I entered the room of Sebastian's mother, Victoria. You made a promise to my father. If he helped Sebastian take over the company, I could leave whenever I wanted. Now I want you to fulfill that promise. Before he passed away, my father was one of the founding members of the Sterling Group. It's safe to say he built the empire alongside Sebastian's late father. His influence was unmatched. Back when Sebastian was fighting his illegitimate brothers for the CEO seat, Victoria brought him to our house to propose, solely to secure my father's backing. My father was reluctant at first. He knew I was quiet and simple, totally unfit for the cutthroat world of the ultra-wealthy. But Sebastian knelt on the floor and swore that no matter what happened, he would never betray me. We were childhood sweethearts. Seeing my blushing face, my father knew my heart. He threw all his weight behind Sebastian, securing him the throne. Before the wedding, my father called me into his study, looking at me with immense sadness. Chloe, you're still young. You don't understand how money and power can corrupt a man's soul. If you ever want to leave him, go to his mother. I am old and cannot protect you forever. But before I die, I will make sure my little girl has an escape route. At the time, I thought my father was just being paranoid. How tragically naive I was. Sebastian knew nothing of this arrangement. Fortunately, Victoria still felt a debt of gratitude toward my father. She promised to deliver the signed divorce papers to me in 7 days. In 7 days, Sebastian would throw a massive banquet for Hailey and her baby to announce the new heir. My quiet departure would go completely unnoticed. Normally, a stillborn baby would be quietly cremated without any fuss. But perhaps out of guilt, Victoria made an exception and arranged a small, private memorial for my baby. According to the tradition, the casket would stay at the funeral home for 3 days. Sebastian didn't show up once. He was too busy buying jewelry and houses for Hailey, hiring top-tier nutritionists, and making her look more like the lady of the house than I ever was. He was busy naming their son Valen, symbolizing the precious treasure of his heart. But when his assistant asked what name should be engraved on my baby's headstone, Sebastian just frowned in annoyance. He was a useless burden anyway, and now he's making the elders fuss over him. So thoughtless. Just engrave Bane on it. As if he wanted the whole world to know how much he detested his own child. Victoria overheard this and reprimanded him severely. She overruled him and named the baby Julian. She said it was a small way to make it up to me, but the person who truly owed me an apology was completely absent. That evening, Hailey walked into the funeral home, radiant and smug. I know you're grieving, Chloe. I really didn't want to bother you. But Sebastian is hosting a grand gala for us in a few days. I'm still missing a few pink diamonds to match my evening gown. I stared at my son's urn and said quietly, then you should go to a jewelry store, not here. Hailey's smile widened. Oh, come on. High-grade pink diamonds don't just grow on trees. You can't even find them at standard auctions. Sebastian told me you have a perfect set. He told me to just come and take it from you. You wouldn't say no, would you? My heart stopped. I slowly looked down at the bracelet on my wrist. It was a delicate chain of pink diamonds carved into cherry blossoms, sparkling under the cold fluorescent lights. Sebastian had given this to me when we got engaged. Back then, a trend was going around on social media about giving flowers to the one you love. I've always loved cherry blossoms. I jokingly told him, if you can make me a cherry blossom bracelet, I'll marry you. It was a joke because cherry blossoms weren't even in season. But the very next day, Sebastian flew to an international auction. He spent almost all of his personal savings to buy 12 rare pink diamonds and hand-carve them into cherry blossoms. When he presented it to me, he smiled like a foolish boy. Chloe, I didn't marry you just to become the heir. I've loved you for 12 years. I truly love you. Real flowers wither, but my love for you will never fade, just like these diamond blossoms. And now he was giving that love to someone else. I said flatly, he bought it. He can give it to whomever he wants. Before I could take it off myself, Hailey nodded to the bodyguards behind her. They grabbed my wrists roughly and ripped the bracelet off my arm. The chain was sturdy, and the force scraped a bloody gash across my wrist. Hailey feigned shock and covered her mouth. Oh, I'm so sorry. These are the new bodyguards Sebastian assigned to protect me. They don't know their own strength. Please don't be mad. The pink diamonds were pried off, and the broken metal chain was tossed carelessly at my feet. I stared at it blankly. Hailey smiled slyly. This morning, I asked Sebastian if he preferred cherry blossoms or roses. Want to guess what he said? He said outdated things are just bad luck. So, just like this bracelet, no matter how real you look, you're still outdated. The bodyguard's phone rang. It was a call saying Sebastian had bought a massive estate in Europe to plant Bulgarian roses just for Hailey. He even built a greenhouse to ensure she had fresh roses flown to her all year round, simply to keep her happy. It turns out, Figuring out if someone loves you or is just patronizing you is incredibly simple. You just have to compare. Yes, the pink diamonds were beautiful. Beautiful enough to make me forget that from the very beginning, his love was a lie. On the day of the baby's burial, Victoria ordered Sebastian to accompany me, to perform his duty as a father, and to shut the mouths of the paparazzi. Sebastian agreed on the surface. But the moment the hearse cleared the city limits, he ordered the driver to stop and got out. Chloe, there's a major auction in New York today. A rare gemstone is up for grabs, and I want to get it for Hailey's baby. Go to the cemetery yourself. His assistant had already pulled up in a sleek sports car. Hailey was sitting in the back seat, looking stunning. I looked at the reporters hiding in the distance, clutching the heavy urn to my chest. But the baby in here is also your son. He paused, his brow furrowing in irritation. Why do you keep comparing a dead baby to a living one? It's not like my presence will bring him back to life. You're wasting my time. Besides, Hailey hasn't visited her parents in a month. I need to go with her. As my wife, you need to be more understanding. Stop throwing tantrums over minor things. A month. He made it sound like a lifetime. I remembered when my father was critically ill. I had begged him to let me go back to my hometown to see him. Sebastian had shrugged it off. Old people get sick all the time. The estate is busy, and Hailey has a cold. Who's going to manage things if you leave? Plus, Hailey has been having nightmares about her late father. She's depressed. If she sees you visiting your dad, she'll only feel worse. Wait until she's in a better mood. I waited for 3 months. Hailey's mood never improved. Instead, I got the news of my father's passing. My relatives told me he refused to let go of his last breath, desperately waiting to see his little girl one last time. He died with his eyes wide open. Sebastian, if you leave today, we are getting a divorce. It was the first time I had ever called him by his first name. A flash of shock crossed his eyes, but it quickly morphed into burning rage. Are you threatening me, Chloe Vance? It's just burying some ashes. You're a grown woman. Do you really have to pick a fight over this? Your parents are dead. You have no family left and no job. Who else do you have to rely on besides me? Since you married into the Sterling family, you are mine. Even if you die, you'll be a ghost of the Sterling house. Stop playing these pathetic mind games with me. I watched him slam the car door shut and drive off with Hailey. Sebastian finally said it out loud. That was the source of his arrogance. He believed I had nowhere to go, no career, and couldn't survive without him. To him, my baby's death was just a minor thing. Even though Sebastian paid off the paparazzi, photos of him abandoning the funeral still leaked onto social media. Billionaire CEO abandons son's funeral to attend auction with mistress. The headline tanked the company's stock. Shareholders flooded Victoria with angry phone calls. Furious, Victoria stormed into the villa Sebastian had bought for Hailey and gave her a severe lashing. I heard Hailey cried hysterically. So the moment I stepped back into the mansion, Sebastian kicked my door open and slapped me hard across the face. Just because I didn't go to the cemetery, you leaked those photos to destroy Hailey and get my mother to humiliate her? She cried so hard she almost fainted. She's still recovering from childbirth. Do you know how dangerous that is? How can you be so vicious? I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and let out a soft laugh. The room went entirely silent after the wet, heavy slap of his palm left a stinging, hot crimson mark across my cheek. I didn't let out a single cry. I didn't reach up to touch my burning skin, and I didn't look at Sebastian with the desperate, tear-filled eyes of the girl who had spent 12 years believing his lies. I simply wiped the thin line of warm blood from the corner of my mouth with the back of my hand, turned my head, and looked out the window at the dark, silent pine trees of our estate. My complete, dead-eyed indifference seemed to terrify him far more than any hysterical screaming would have. Sebastian took a half step back, his fingers clenching into tight, trembling fists at his sides. Chloe, don't look at me like that, he muttered, his voice dropping into a tight, defensive register. I was out of line. But you shouldn't have leaked those photos. You know my mother is already looking for any excuse to throw Hailey and Valen out. I had to protect them. I didn't leak the photos, Sebastian, I said, my voice quiet, even, and entirely flat. But since you already believe I did, there is no reason for me to waste my breath on an explanation. I walked past his shoulder, completely ignoring his presence, and walked into the guest room, closing the door and sliding the heavy brass bolt into place. For the next 6 days, I was a ghost in the Sterling mansion. I systematically packed my belongings into 2 small, worn-out canvas suitcases, the exact suitcases my father had bought me when I first left our hometown for college. I didn't touch the designer clothes Sebastian had bought to fill my closet. I left the expensive French perfumes, the custom-made jewelry, and the heavy winter coats. The only thing I took was my father's old, handwritten journal of his early years building the Sterling Group, and my official academic credentials. On the morning of the 6th day, My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was an automated notification from my private bank account in Zurich, Switzerland. Asset transfer confirmed. The Vance Family Trust has successfully transferred $300 million in liquid dividends and 30% of the Sterling Group's core logistics shares to your private account. My father had never been a fool. He had known that the cutthroat, greedy world of the Sterling family would eventually attempt to swallow me whole. Before his death, he had quietly, legally tied 30% of the Sterling Group's vital logistics and shipping networks directly to my personal name, completely separate from any marital property, and my maternal uncle Julian Vance, the legendary shipping tycoon who had been quietly monitoring me from London, had spent the last year securing those shares under his own private trust, waiting for the day I decided to finally walk out of the dark. I looked at the gold seal on the digital transfer documents. The 6 years of my submission, my apologies, and my constant desperate attempts to make a husband love me were finally over. "I'm ready, Uncle Julian," I said into the receiver. "I'm outside the gates, Chloe." Julian's deep, warm voice came through the line. "Let's go home." The grand ballroom of the Sterling Hotel was a sea of crystal, white roses, and high society hypocrisy. Tonight was the grand banquet Sebastian had spent 3 months planning. The room was packed with the city's top corporate partners, politicians, and media reporters, all chatting over glasses of expensive champagne under the massive, sparkling chandeliers. The banners hanging from the gilded ceiling proudly displayed the name Valen Sterling, welcoming him as the sole, official heir to the Sterling family's $12 billion trust. Sebastian stood on the center of the stage, wearing a tailored black tuxedo. He looked healthy, prosperous, his hand resting smugly on Hailey's waist. Hailey stood beside him, wearing a custom-tailored white lace gown, her pink diamond cherry blossom bracelet sparkling under the spotlight. She was cradling her baby boy Valen, looking like the undisputed queen of the Sterling Group. "Honored guests, members of the board," Sebastian announced into the microphone, his voice carrying a proud, booming authority. "Today we are not only celebrating the arrival of my son Valen, but we are also finalizing his official registration as the primary heir to the Sterling Family Trust. This is a monument to our legacy." The massive, high-definition LED screens behind the stage suddenly went completely black. The elegant corporate logo of the Sterling Group vanished, replaced by a harsh, blue static that filled the silent ballroom with a loud, digital hum. "What's going on?" Sebastian snapped, turning to the technician booth, his face flushing with a sudden, sharp irritation. "Fix the screens now." But before anyone could move, the static cleared. A video began to play. It wasn't a baby photo. It was the security footage from the private, high-security driveway of the hospital from the night of my labor. The camera clearly showed the chauffeur locking the doors of the luxury sedan, while I lay in the back seat, screaming in agony, clutching my heavy, pregnant belly. And then the intercom audio of the car played, loud and bone-chillingly clear, over the ballroom sound system. "Chauffeur. I'm sorry, Chloe. Hailey's water just broke too, Mr. Sterling said. Hailey must deliver her baby first before I can let you into the hospital." Sebastian's recorded voice. "Keep her locked in. She's tough. She can wait. If her baby is born first, my mother will never let Valen inherit the trust." The ballroom went dead silent. "No. That's a fabrication. That's edited." Sebastian shrieked, his voice rising to a frantic, hysterical whine as he took 3 steps back from the podium, his champagne glass shattering on the stage floor. But the screen changed again. A new document appeared. It was the official certified DNA report from the State Forensic Bureau. The report showed a 0% paternity match between Sebastian Sterling and Hailey Miller. And right beside it, the secondary test results proved that Valen's biological father was actually illegitimate brother of Sebastian, the very brother who had been exiled to Europe 3 years ago. Hailey had been sleeping with his brother, using the child as a corporate tool to steal the Sterling family's $12 billion trust, while Sebastian had literally murdered his own biological son to protect her lie. The crowd of board members, investors, and reporters let out a collective, gasping roar of absolute, unbridled horror. "What is this? Sebastian. Hailey, what is the meaning of this?" The chairman of the board screamed, standing up and pointing a trembling finger at the stage. And then, the heavy double doors at the back of the ballroom were thrown open. I walked into the ballroom. I was wearing a tailored, emerald green silk trouser suit. My posture was relaxed, my face healthy, and my eyes carried a quiet, fierce peace. I was no longer the quiet, fragile wife who had to apologize for her existence. Beside me walked Julian Vance, flanked by a team of 10 federal marshals and 6 private security guards. "Chloe," Sebastian whispered, his hand dropping from Hailey's waist, his eyes staring at my face with a sudden, suffocating panic. Her elegant, corporate composure completely turned to ash in a single second. Victoria stood from the front table, her face completely pasty white, her body shaking as she handed me the signed divorce papers. "The alliance is dead, Sebastian," Victoria said, her voice echoing through the silent cathedral of the ballroom. "Chloe's father's trust has officially recalled all logistics and shipping lines. The Sterling Group has no legal authority to operate without the Vance Group's backing." No, Chloe, please. I was wrong. I was blind," Sebastian screamed, his professional dignity entirely gone as he fell to his knees on the stage floor, his hands reaching out to grab the hem of my trousers. "I did it for us. I wanted the inheritance so we could have a good life. I didn't know Valen wasn't mine. Hailey, she lied to me. She played me." I looked down at the two of them kneeling on the floor, the husband who had locked me in a car while our son suffocated, and the mistress who had stolen my life's work to buy her crown. "You wanted to plant roses in Europe, Sebastian," I said, my voice carrying a quiet, beautiful finality. "I hope you enjoy your own." The officers marched onto the stage, their heavy boots thudding against the wood, and clicked the heavy steel handcuffs around the wrists of Sebastian and Hailey on live national television. They were dragged out of the ballroom, their weeping, frantic screams quickly swallowed by the heavy doors. I turned and walked out of the hotel, my arm naturally hooked over Julian's, my footsteps steady on the marble steps under the clear, sunny sky. The nightmare of my past was finally, permanently dead, and my spring had finally begun.